to see the Pope!
They were desperate to catch a closer look at the Pope. From early morning, more than 30,000 citizens lined the streets surrounding the National Mall. After passing very strict security measures, some of them waited over 6 hours to see the Pope-mobile parade down Constitution Avenue.
I think many people are here to receive the Pope's blessing and to get peace from him, which is what we all need.
Pope Francis was greeted at the White House by the Obama family, along with 11,000 guests who were able to attend the ceremony. During his speech, the pontiff was very forthcoming about climate change and the urgency with which this subject should be addressed.
The Pope has spoken very eloquently on issues that matter to all of us, for example, climate change. And this week, actually, he'll be speaking at the UN General Assembly in New York, urging world leaders to address some of the most pressing problems, ending hunger and poverty around the world, and at the same time taking care of the planet.
People were not only keen to see the Pope, many are also anxious to know what will come out of the closed-door meeting he held with President Obama in his address to Congress on Thursday.
I want to hear what he says to Congress, what he says to Obama, what he says even to me, like his encyclical, he's here for the family. So I just want to absorb everything and just take it into my life.
The pontiff traveled down 4 main avenues in Washington, D.C., making thousands of people's dreams a reality by allowing them to see him, even if just for a few seconds. Those present felt that the long wait was worthwhile.
It was amazing. I mean, the people here were so nice. They were looking out for each other and making sure everybody was okay. And I think it was just the excitement of the hope and knowing that, you know, that he had a good message and he actually does things with his message.
Later in the day, Pope Francis held a Mass in St. Matthew's Cathedral, where 600 bishops from around the nation were present. During this Mass, His Holiness asked for a strengthening of the Church and its representatives. Bianca Perez, teleSUR, Washington, D.C.
Expectations were running high since early in the morning Wednesday, when Colombia's president confirmed he was traveling to Cuba. Political leaders and peace advocates gathered for an announcement that didn't fail to arrive. After more than a year of discussions on the issue of justice, the FARC and the government had come to an agreement.
The message is that peace is near, that they have made an extreme breakthrough in the conversations. They have crossed the line of no return. And I think that that is great news for the Colombian people and for all of the Americas.
Historic images were coming from Havana, President Santos shaking hands with Timoshenko, who took over the FARC leadership in 2011 from Alfonso Cano, after the latter was killed in a military operation commanded by the same Santos. Now they were sealing an agreement on a special jurisdiction for peace that will prosecute both members of the FARC and the military for crimes committed during the conflict.
That's extremely significant because it was a major point of discussion and debate. Now, what has happened has set the peace process on its final stretch. I believe there's no way back. There's nothing that could possibly put this in reverse.
Having already reached agreements on the issues of rural reform, political participation, illegal drugs, and now the most challenging, the one of justice and victims, just a final issue that involves the details to end the armed confrontation is pending. A deadline of 6 months maximum has been set to resolve it.
I believe this is nearly the final peace agreement. Of course, some vital issues are still pending, such as the one of paramilitarism, which is crucial to guarantee things are not repeated. But to put it into fewer words, I believe this latest agreement is basically the end of the Cold War worldwide.
This 23rd of September will go down in Colombia's history as the day when restorative justice prevailed over punitive justice. The focus will be on healing the damage experienced by the victims and fully compensating them. Natalia Margarita, teleSUR, Bogotá.
Y nosotras.
Thousands of Bolivians gathered in front of the presidential palace on Thursday in celebration of the United Nations court decision to hear Bolivia's case for access to the Pacific Ocean. Singing the Bolivian anthem in a show of national pride, residents answered the call of President Evo Morales to mark the special occasion.
We're so pleased about the court's decision. It gives us the possibility of recovering our access to the sea.
Bolivia lost its coastline during the War of the Pacific with Chile in the late 19th century. Chile says a treaty signed in 1904 settled their borders and that Bolivia has no case. President Evo Morales disagrees and wants more than 400 kilometres of coastline handed back to the nation. The International Court of Justice in The Hague ruled on Thursday that it has jurisdiction to hear the case.
This is a historic day, an unforgettable day for Bolivians. It's a big step forward in the lawsuit for our claim to the Pacific Ocean.
The decision by the International Court of Justice has been overwhelmingly welcomed all across Bolivia. Even though a final decision could be years away, this hasn't dampened the celebrations. They say they've waited decades for today, and they're prepared to wait just a little longer. If Bolivia regains access to the coast, it could boost trade and bring down the cost of exports, which compared to Chile are 55% more expensive.
This is very important in terms of the economy, for finance for the Bolivian state.
Delegations from Chile and Bolivia are due to return to the UN court to argue their cases, but the entire process could take up to 5 years to resolve. After a century-long battle with Chile, the feeling of confidence is growing that they will get their coast back. Dimitri O'Donnell, teleSUR La Paz.
After two nominees for Congress in his right-wing party PRO have been accused of corruption, the Buenos Aires mayor and presidential hopeful Mauricio Macri is under the spotlight. Several Buenos Aires city legislators from different opposition parties demanded the political responsibilities need to be clarified, as both accusations involve high-level officials in the local government.
What we see here, and what people start to see, is that the truth behind the PRO party and its speeches on transparency and a new way of doing politics has been exposed. We can see they do exactly what they criticize. They use political methods that we left behind long ago.
One of the accusations was directed against Eduardo Amadeo, a parliament hopeful in the right-wing coalition Cambiemos. Amadeo is the head of two NGOs, which were awarded with more than $400,000 in contracts by the Buenos Aires local government since 2008. Such contracts were not properly registered in the city's official bulletin.
There are a series of problems to be addressed in this legislature, and one of them is how they have diverted funds from the public sector to the private sector. This is a corruption scandal that is now hitting the city government, but which is also part of the way the PRO party behaves in Buenos Aires. And the political head of all this is Mauricio Macri.
A previous case involved the city government for irregularly awarding more than $2 million to a TV production company owned by the now former nominee for Congress in Macri's ballot, Fernando Niembro, who declined his candidacy amid a growing scandal. While in recent days, local legislators tried to pass a bill demanding Mayor Macri to provide detailed explanations about the so-called Niembro affair, lawmakers aligned with Macri blocked the initiative.
One of the main slogans of this coalition led by Macri was transparency and the fight against corruption. Now it turns out that they are deeply involved in just such a scandal, yet they don't want to give proper explanations.
Niembro's resignation was the first result of the growing corruption scandal in Macri's party. However, the main problem he seems to face right now is the increasingly visible distance between his discourse and the reality. Laureano Ponce, teleSUR Buenos Aires.
The destruction of the tunnels extending along Gaza's border with Egypt since June 2013 and the repeated closure of the Israeli crossings due to the Jewish holidays have triggered a severe fuel shortage in the coastal enclave. As a result, the delivery of the essential service that basically depend on the operation of backup generators during electricity outages, including water, sewage, transportation and more, has been seriously disrupted over the past weeks. Fuel shortage is nothing new in Gaza. However, necessity is the mother of invention, and as transportation is the hardest hit in such a high populated area, Gazans are forced to find solutions to survive.
أثر علي في كل شيء ممكن تتخيله زي ما سبق وحكيت لك أنا طالب جامعة خريج جامعة صار لي 7 سنوات.
I was largely affected by this crisis. Like I told you before, I'm a university graduate. I graduated 7 years ago. I do not have a job. I thanked God and said it's no big deal. I thought about working as a taxi driver. Diesel is basic for my car to move. Cutting it means stopping my life. Second, I have a question. Who is responsible about this crisis and why? I believe these are fabricated crises. We go to the petrol station and they tell us there is no fuel. Why do I have to wait for 4 or 5 hours and not even be sure if I can fill my car's tank? I want to understand who will take responsibility for keeping me 4 or 5 hours without work.
حكومة غزة برضه مش سالين، بدوروا على ضرائب وبدوروا على مخالفات مرورية وبدوروا على تأمين وعلى ترخيص وعلى كل شيء، لكن عند الوقود بقول لك أزمة. الأزمات هذه مفتعلة، سياسة تجهيل.
A scene that could not be seen elsewhere except in Gaza. Drivers found no other way but to put replacing fuel for cooking gas and oil, turning a blind eye to the bad smell, the fumes and the pollution that results. Meanwhile, the United Nations has spelled out in more than a statement its concerns over the ongoing fuel shortage in the coastal enclave, as well as the impacts of using dangerous cooking oil and cooking gas to overcome their trouble. Nur Harazin, teleSUR TV, Gaza.